Hello everyone, this is Pippin Williamson with pippinsplugins.com, and in this video I'm going to show you how to work with WordPress nonces, or nonces according to some people. A nonce is basically a functions or a feature in WordPress that we can use as an extra security measure. It's for verifying that our form data, whatever your form may be, is being submitted from the proper place. It's just an extra way to verify that someone is using your form like they're supposed to and not maliciously trying to insert data or anything like that, perhaps from an external URL. It's also ensuring that the function that we use to process our form data only processes data coming from our form itself. So anyway, this is a page in the codex that kind of explains nonces, as well as gives you some a couple functions that we'll actually use with nonces. So what I'm going to show you now is we're just going to write a really simple little plugin that does one thing. I'm going to add a simple HTML form to it. I'm going to attach it to a shortcode, and then I'm going to submit that form, and during the submission of that form I'm going to check to make sure that the nonce is valid. The nonce inside of the form is nothing more than a string of random characters that changes each time that you refresh your page or resubmit the form, etc. So we're going to add a nonce field to our form, and then in the function that we'll use to actually process the form data, we'll verify that nonce to make sure that it's valid. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to write a function really quickly that outputs a simple HTML form. We can just do this. And now I'm just going to attach my function to a shortcode. I'm having trouble typing today. Again. Okay. So my shortcode is now active, and now inside of this function I'm going to start an output buffer, and then at the end I'm going to return the contents of that output buffer, just like that. Okay, so now inside of my output buffer I can actually write out the form code. So this is a pretty simple form. It doesn't actually really need anything at all because we're just using it as a sample. So I'm just going to give it a method. I'm going to give it a blank action. Again with the typing. Okay, so now inside of the form, let's just wrap our input fields in a p tag just for some formatting. And now I'm going to put in two inputs. The first one is going to be a hidden input. And this is our nonce field. And the way you do this is you give your field a value, and then you use echo wp create nonce, and then you just give it a name. The name can be anything that you want. You just note that the name that you use in the nonce field that you create inside of your form, the name that you use here, for this function is what you have to use when you verify the nonce. Okay, so now let's just give it a submit button. Okay, and that's our form. That's the entire thing. So obviously this form doesn't really do anything, but it's going to illustrate the purpose. So now we're going to write another function to actually process our data and verify the nonce. To do that, we're going to do this. Process form data. And so inside of this function, I'm going to actually check to see whether the post variables are set and to verify the nonce. And in order to make our function interpret our post variables, we're going to attach this to the init hook, just like this. Okay, and now if is set, so basically we're just doing a quick check right here just to make sure that the only time that anything inside of this function actually runs is if this form has been submitted. Because this will say if is set, and this will only validate as true if this form itself was submitted. So now inside of this function, Now we can check to verify the nonce. To do that, we're going to use the WP verify nonce function, and it looks like this. And again, we're just going to use the same post variable as before, which is the name of our nonce field up here. You can see that all three of those match. So we have this that says if WP verify nonce, the first parameter is the name of the post variable, and the second is the name of the nonce we created up here. So if the nonce is valid, we're going to end up here. Otherwise, we're going to end up here. So now to to give us an indicator of whether or not our tests have been successful, let's just do a quick echo. Nonce man, I really can't type today. Verified successfully. Exit. So if it's verified, it's just going to print out nonce verified successfully, and it's going to exit the process. Otherwise, we're going to echo nonce not verified. Exit. Okay, and that's all that we need. So now our plugin is done. This is obviously it's very simple. But now if we go over to our post, you see I've just gone into a post right here and just entered my nonce form. Remember, we added a shortcode right here called nonce. And then when I publish it, when I look at it, it looks like this. It's just a submit button. That's all that you see. If we look at the source code for it, we can see that our hidden input has this value right here. Now, take a look at that real quick, and now let's refresh the page. And I may be wrong on this. It may not generate every time, but it will change depending on. It will basically create a random string. So anyway, we have this random string, and the only way that this form is going to verify is if this string matches the WP verify nonce function. So let's try submitting. Nonce verified successfully. Okay, so that verified successfully because this input matches here. The name of the nonce that we added here matches the WP verify nonce. So we can now write here process form data, and we know that this form has been submitted from the correct location. Now let's try something. Let's go up here and let's just change our nonce name by a little bit. I'm just going to add in an extra S. And now let's take a look and see what happens. Now if I submit, it's going to say nonce not verified. And that's because this has generated a completely different nonce than what this one is looking for. This only has one S in sample. This has two. So it's never going to verify. So that just kind of illustrates what happens if it doesn't get verified. So for now, if we change this name back and go over here and hit submit, nonce verified successfully. So nonces are extremely powerful. Well, not really powerful. They're really great for verifying form data and ensuring that your form submissions are coming from the place they're supposed to be. I wouldn't ever write a form in WordPress without using a nonce field. You can use them in the admin or the front end. The front end is probably a little bit more important than the admin, but the admin is important too. It's just an extra security measure that you can use to make sure that no one is trying to use your form processing function for malicious purposes. So since security in WordPress is a huge, not a problem, but it's a concern for a lot of people, taking this extra step to set up your nonces and verify them correctly definitely helps with that. It helps make your plugins, your themes, etc. one more notch secure. So anyway, that's a quick introduction to nonces. I'd recommend testing it out, trying it, and also take a look at the Codex page and look at all the resources they have here. There's a couple good tutorials from Mark and Vladimir, both who are excellent developers. So anyway, take some time to look into nonces, start using them.